He's here. They put him in a cell right next to mine. Guess we didn't get them all, eh?
Deal with this, Charles.
At once, sir.
Welcome back to the Assassin's Creed The Complete Story. In this episode, we'll be continuing our coverage of Connor in Assassin's Creed 3 in order to get you prepared to play Edward Kenway, Connor's grandfather in Assassin's Creed 4. What do you think of them going back to the pirate era? I honestly was a little worried that they were going to go more towards the modern day and we were going to start going towards guns. I personally thought that that might ruin the series. But I enjoyed pirates. I'm a huge fan of pirates, and bringing one of my favorite series, Assassin's Creed, to a pirate world just makes me so happy. Without wasting any more time, all information gathered here is from the Assassin's Creed Wiki, the General Wiki, and us playing the game. In 1776, Achilles would contact Benjamin Talmadge, an ally of the Brotherhood, and this ally would lead Connor through New York in search of Thomas Hickey. Thomas Hickey is the man who was planning to assassinate General George Washington. As they were going through New York, Talmadge would eventually point out Hickey to Connor, and without even considering how it may look, Connor chases after Hickey, and the two men try to kill each other. Their chase and battle would eventually lead them right to General George Washington, and the two men guarding Washington thought that both Connor and Hickey were trying to kill him, so they captured them both and locked them up. Connor would awaken in his cell, and his enemy Thomas Hickey would be in the cell next to him. Connor commented that at least with Hickey locked up, Washington would be safe. But Thomas Hickey looked at him and said that he wouldn't be locked up for very long. And just as he mentioned this, two Templars walked over to move Hickey to a different cell. Haytham then looked at Charles Lee and said, "Deal with the assassin problem," indicating that Connor would be dealt with shortly. Seeing that Hickey would be free to attack Washington soon and realizing the danger on his own life, Connor worked with the prisoners to get himself free. He eventually found a way to swap the warden's key for a fake and freed himself through the use of the proper key. But before he could fully escape the prison, Charles Lee and Hickey would both confront Connor in the doorway and brought him back into the prison. After a struggle between Charles Lee and Connor, Lee realized that Connor was the boy that said he would find him all those years ago. Charles Lee found himself filled with glee at the fact that the boy from all those years ago had actually sought him out, and with that, he knocked Connor unconscious. The next morning, Connor would find himself en route to being executed for the assassination attempt on Washington. As he was being escorted to the gallows, he would be denounced by everyone, and Washington would look on as he was about to be hung. Connor expressed how he thought that he was going to be on trial, not right to the execution, but Thomas Hickey told him that those accused of treachery were executed immediately. Connor closed his eyes and prepared to meet his end, when he realized he wasn't alone. No, his assassins were with him, and he gave a whistle just as he was about to be hung. The rope that would hang him was severed. Achilles would retrieve Connor, and they would run through the disorganized crowd. All the assassin recruits all fought Hickey's men, as Connor rushed for Thomas Hickey himself. In a desperate attempt to assassinate Washington, Hickey would run towards him at the last second, but he was too slow, as Connor would jump on him and strike him down first. All the Continental soldiers would raise their guns to Connor, but it was his friend Putnam who would run up and make them realize that Connor just saved Washington and was not the true enemy. This is how Connor would clear his name and come back to working with Washington. Connor would go back to his training and his goal of eradicating the Templars in the area. He would be there for the signing of the Declaration of Independence. He would also go on to search for Captain Kidd's treasure, discovering that it was in fact the shard of the Peace of Eden, allowing him to deflect bullets. In the winter of 1777, Connor traveled to New York and met with Aveline de Grandpré, a French-African assassin from the New Orleans. They worked together to seek out a Templar and a Loyalist soldier. Their run-in would make Aveline question being an assassin, and she asked Connor if he believed in fighting as an assassin was the right thing to do. He simply responded with that he trusted his own hands to separate right from wrong. Despite his successes, Connor would come no closer to eliminating the Templar threat in the area. Connor became frustrated with the failures of his friend and trainer, Achilles. He felt that Achilles had led the colonial assassins to their current shoddy state. He wanted to warn Washington of the conspiracies against him, but Achilles continually told Connor that he should not be shouting conspiracies from the rooftops. Connor argued that this is why Achilles had failed the assassins, and he left the homestead, with Achilles simply warning him that if Connor wished to save the world, he should avoid destroying it in the process. Connor met with Washington to warn him of the conspiracies against him, but the commander was more concerned with an immediate threat. The supplies of his men had been stolen, and he believed they had been stolen by a continental traitor. Connor took it upon himself to investigate the nearby church where supposedly the traitor had been spotted. Once he arrived at the church, though, he was quickly jumped by Haytham Kenway, his own father. They tangled for a moment until Connor accused Haytham and the Templars of working with the British against the Continentals. Haytham corrected him and said that the Templars were not in fact working with the British. He explained that the men who betrayed the Continentals had also betrayed the Templars, and he intended to take the stolen goods and sell them to the British. The two men agreed to work together from this point on. They spent quite some time looking for the traitor, and much of that time was spent getting reacquainted. Eventually, Haytham asked Connor about his mother, as she had cut all ties from Haytham shortly after Connor's conception. Connor brushed it off, though, and simply told Haytham that she had died to his orders. Haytham denied this, claiming that he had ordered no such thing, but Connor wouldn't hear it. Their search would keep them together for a while, but eventually they would find Benjamin Church. Haytham would insist on using brute force, but Connor would still his hand and kneel down to question Church properly. But Church still refused to give the information that Connor wanted, and eventually he would stab the man with his hidden blade to get the information. Connor and Haytham would then part ways without even a fight, and Connor would be left to wonder, could assassins and Templars work together since they shared a similar ideal? Join us next time when we answer that very question and bring our coverage to Connor and Assassin's Creed 3 to a close. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook for up-to-the-minute information from Eligible Monster.